Hello and welcome to another program of Face to Face. For many people, the challenge of whether or not to study academics, stay in school, is a real challenge. And today we have on our program someone who, when he was 15 years old, had the opportunity, had a scholarship, and the chance to become a full-time musician. He made the choice to study academics, and today he's still a musician. We'll be right back. What are your views on music in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Can of worms, finally.
Hello, Sean. Welcome to our program. Thank you very much for talking to us. On Sunday, about five days ago, I graduated from Ming Chuan University here in Taiwan. And when we had to stand like good students and sing our school song, I realized that after 5 years in the university, I didn't know the song at all. But during the singing of that song, for some reason, I remembered my days in grammar school. And part of that memory involved you playing the piano during our rendition of the school song, grammar school. And I was looking at your autobiography, and it's pretty impressive. You have 2 master's degrees, it is. And what I noticed is that when you were 15 years old, you got a scholarship to study at the Royal College of Music in the UK. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in music?
From the beginning. It's something that I always gravitated towards. You know, you go to church, you'll hear the organ playing, you'll hear the choir singing. My first musical memory is of Bob Marley's Redemption song when I was a little very, very, very young. I just remember following it for some reason. I don't know why. There are pictures of me as a baby amongst my father's records, and I also remember one of my uncles gave me one of these. I had my own record player when I was a child, so I'd lock myself in my room for several hours on Saturdays and Sundays listening to music. So I spent a lot of time interacting with music as a kid. Started formally taking lessons around the age of 8. Progressed quickly, did the Royal Schools of Music exams, both the theory and the practical exams. If you excel at the grade 8 examination, then you're offered a scholarship to the UK to study at one of the Royal Schools. There are about 4 of them at the time in the UK, and I did get that scholarship. I didn't end up going, but I got it.
So there you were, a 15-year-old boy in grammar school, one of the leading academic high school institutions in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you were offered a scholarship. How is it that as a 15-year-old boy, you made the decision to stay in grammar school rather than go and pursue a career in music?
It was more the parents said, we're not leaving here to study music. So that was pretty much the decision. I mean, I would have loved to have gone, but that wasn't.
So are you saying that if the choice was solely yours?
Yeah, if the choice were mine, I would have gone to study music.
So you loved the music that much?
Yeah. I mean, I had to work. I set out like 2 years before I was going after the scholarship. You plan your repertoire, you get the music. It's not like now where you could go on YouTube or go online and find the digital score of something. This is a time when there was none of that. If you wanted a recording of a piece, you had to order it from a catalog. First, you had to get the catalog from the company, order it from the company, which involved, filling out a form, getting a money order from the bank, a draft from the bank, sending that off, waiting a couple of weeks until it gets back. So it was quite an arduous process. So going through picking repertoire, practicing it, memorizing it, all of that was a whole year to 2 worth of work ahead of time. So it's something that I went after.
And just for context, what year was that?
That would have been 93. I got this. I did the exam in 93. I was in Form 4. 1993. And what have you been up to since those years in grammar school? After I got the scholarship and I didn't go off, I spent a lot of time doing more collaborative music stuff. So I formed Suede at some point. That would have been 94 for graduation. Graduation seems to be a recurrent theme today. So there was Suede. I did a bit of work with the Steel Panagram School, was active in church groups as well. Leaving St. Vincent to go off to MIT to study, I did a dual degree, so double majored in music. So I picked back up my solo playing. While I was at MIT, played a bit with the orchestra, did a lot of chamber music, which is the smaller groups, like say a violinist, a cellist, and myself, or pretty small group configurations. I did a lot of work in the MIT community musically, so the Caribbean Club would have a lot of events. I'd perform at these events, or we'll perform in conjunction with the African Students Association. Leaving MIT, I continued practicing, kept up my playing. I've performed particularly a lot of late, performing a lot across the Caribbean. I've had some interesting performances with the National Steel Orchestra in Trinidad, the National Symphony Orchestra, the actual orchestra, not the steel orchestra. So it has been an interesting journey since leaving.
So you mentioned MIT. What exactly did you study there?
I did electrical engineering and computer science. Now a lot of people think that that's 2 degrees. It's actually 1. The way it works is that at MIT, both the electrical engineering department and the computer science department, they're 1 department. So you either do all computer science or half-half. So I did the half-half. And the degree that you accorded is both electrical engineering and computer science. I also double majored in music, so that's at the undergrad level. And I stayed on to do a 1-year master's in engineering.
And I saw on your CV you also have a master's degree in finance. Is that so?
I have an MBA. Yeah, I've completed that in 2010 at McGill.
What is the link?
What's the link?
Why did you decide on this type of combination?
I wouldn't look at it as a combination per se. I would look at it as what makes sense and the skills that I was trying to get, or the direction in which I want to take my life. I look back and I see I've always been trying to make things happen. So there was Suede, there was reviving Steel Panagram School. There are all these initiatives to create something and make an impact. Of all the degrees out there, I think the MBA is the one that allows you to actually understand how things function. How do you take an idea from concept to actual reality? Whether it's financially, marketing-wise, operationally, it's the 1 degree that at least helps to bridge that gap. So looking back at my life and looking at where I would like to take my life, it's the degree that made sense. I focused on finance. That was my intention going in, but that's how I ended up, what I ended up focusing on. But I also did a lot of other courses. So I did courses in strategy, entrepreneurship, as well as the arts. So managing cultural organizations. How do you, a lot of, just different types of courses.
So on the one hand, you are a musician, and on the other, you're an academic. Did they complement each other?
There's some complementary aspects to it. I mean, there's a whole branch of research that says that people who are musically inclined tend to be mathematically inclined as well.
Is that
so
the
there's
case with you?
Apparently so. So there's that aspect of it. For example, double majoring at MIT. Music courses are in one direction and engineering courses are in the other direction. Yes, there's some courses that there's some overlap, but one doesn't feed the other per se. If I were taking, let's say, physics, double majoring in physics and electrical engineering, then there's a little bit more, bleed over and a little bit more one complementing the other, because the material is similar. Building upon skills that you could draw from each camp. But with music, it's a completely different discipline. It's a completely different side of your brain that you're developing and exploring. So I wouldn't say there was was that much of a compliment.
So a musician's left brain or right brain?
Musicians, people here with the side of the brain that just processes music as background stuff, such as like how it feels. Whereas musicians use the right side of your brain. Oh, I guess the right side, it depends on if you're left-handed or right-handed, but it uses the other side of the brain that does more processing and more analysis. So I will be hearing something and I'll be listening with a different side of my brain from you because you're trained that way. That's what you do.
You were just rehearsing and you allowed us to sit in on your rehearsal, and at one point I asked you if you still remember how to play the grammar school song, and you said I think so, and after a few seconds you were able to play it. How is it that you retain that kind of...
It depends on how you put it in. Like I've played that piece.
When was the last time you played it before today?
I think I would have played it once or twice again around the centennial anniversary. I think that's probably the last time I played it. Before that, it would have been, let me do the calculation, at least 15 years? 15 years.
So how do you store that information? How do you
It depends on how you put it in. So again, when I first learned it, I looked at the music. I played with the music for a while, and then after a while you just memorize it. But because I played it over and over again, because remember I was playing for assemblies for about 7 years. So every week for 7 years you pretty much have it. It's there. So it's just a matter of recalling it.
So how do you retrieve it? How do you recall
it? you just start playing it, and a lot of it is when you're memorizing music, a lot of it is muscle memory. There's some visual and there's some auditory as well. So it's a combination of all three. So I'm looking at the keys visually. I am thinking, okay, my hands go this way, this is the flow of it. And then, a combination of all of that. So it depends on how you put it in. And it goes back to learning a new piece as well. Some pieces you know for life, and other pieces you don't know for life. So it's just like in school, you memorize certain things to pass an exam. There are certain things, some things will stick out. Again, it depends on whether you had some epiphany while you learned it, or whether you made a conscious decision, okay, I'm going to really put this away for a long time.
You spoke about epiphany, and I wanted to ask the question, besides looking at the scores, muscle movements, visuals that you said that you used to help you to retrieve this information about this music that you've stored in your memory, is there anything else? Are there any particular memories that you associate with certain music that helps you to okay, tell me a little bit about that.
I don't think there's so much the environment or something about the memory that helps you remember. I don't think it's that. But for me, music does occupy, like you, when you heard a school song, it brings back certain memories. There are certain songs that are just coined with certain phases of my life. So for example, I listened to some time ago, No Diggity, No Doubt. That's like, I know that is from around freshman year, MIT. Then there's some stuff like the Fugees, that would have been like sixth form. That song, Hot This Year, first form. Because memories of riding in the vans, going out to Annisville sports, that sort of thing, that's there. There are a couple songs that that I have associated with my MBA experience. I would hear them, and that's how I remember. So yes, but not from the standpoint of learning the music.
Also, during the rehearsal, you played another piece. Can you tell us about that?
That's the Rihanna.
Yes.
So what it was, I'm always looking for pieces that are a little bit more accessible to the audience, because for me, there's a bit of a challenge playing for Caribbean audiences, or at least mostly Caribbean audiences.
Stick a pin. Why is that so?
You know, classical music is not, for most of us, especially in this day and age, not something that is synonymous with our culture. So for example, if you were to go to Germany or Holland, like I've been to Holland, and classical music is just pretty much there. It's part of the culture. That's what people live, breathe. Even though there are other genres, that's just their music. It's not our music per se. So, you know, as a performer, you can say, I'm gonna just present this. This is what I do. That's it. Or do you try to bridge the gap and draw people in to the music? So I've been always, you know, I choose my programs. It's like creating a meal. You have to have like an appetizer, main course, desserts. You know, something to entice your audience. So I've been looking for pieces that are accessible per se. So this piece, it's Please Don't Stop the Music, a piece that was popular, you know, in the clubs and everything a couple of years ago. This Russian pianist, young Russian pianist, Lola Astanova, did a version of it, just a retake of it, and she's published it. So I heard it on YouTube recently, and I really liked it. So I ordered the music, got it, and learned it. So that's one of the pieces I'm hoping to play for the first time in concert in Cayman Islands on Saturday.
So we got to peep in on that.
You got to peep in on that, but yeah.
Thank you very much for that. You sort of spoke about this in a roundabout way, but I want to ask you specifically, how has music helped you to become the person that you are today?
Interesting. I think a lot of it is discipline. So you're learning a lot of music it takes a lot to actually sit down and practice rather than go do something else that's less taxing. To learn these pieces. And the thing is, particularly with classical music, after you've learned it, that's just like a first step. So the next step is a lot of perfecting and polishing. Because you just, unlike other genres where you just learn the music, you learn the chords, and you go and play a gig. Classical music is not like that. You learn the notes, and then you have to bring something to it, and tweak, twirl, twirl, and keep up the chops. So it's a lot more involved. So the discipline behind that. A lot of it is performing arts. You're getting up and doing something in front of people. You're basically putting yourself, it's as though you're standing there naked in front of people, because you're allowing people into a space that's pretty personal. That's one. And also you're putting yourself out there, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. And you're up for public scrutiny, public analysis, and it's a little annoying. So getting those skills of being confident to present something in public. So discipline, and I think those are the two major things. It's helped to balance me out a bit. It has opened up a lot of doors. I've met a lot of people through it. I've learned a lot of different cultures, and a lot about different cultures, a lot about different people, and it's a door opener.
Are there any other benefits in addition to discipline? Is there a spiritual element to it?
There is a spiritual element, but I guess for me it depends on what you use it for. So some people, yes, they develop it, and what they do, they just play for entertainment, right? I don't do that. For me, this is work. Yes, I could do that. If something is bothering me, I could, but that tends to be dangerous, because if you try to take your frustrations out, you might end up damaging yourself.
Can you explain that?
No, I mean, if you're venting at the piano, for say, and you're just hitting notes randomly, and you might damage your hands, which in turn undermines your whole performance.
But does it also have a psychological effect on you if one uses music in that way?
Like I said, I don't do that. The thing is, okay, if something is bothering you, or you're preoccupied about something, or you've gone through a particular life experience, yes, it does shape the way you express the music. I mean, I'm not downplaying other uses, but for me, like, it's work. I go there, I sit down, I practice, I enjoy what I hear when I'm done, or while I'm doing it. That's good enough for me. I don't use it so much for the leisure purposes now.
Oh, maybe I should ask you, have you always been like this, or is it that you've evolved to this point?
I think I've evolved. A lot of, for example, when I was younger, I would spend a lot of time just playing music. A lot of that, yes, was sheer enjoyment, sheer pleasure. But when you want, I think it's especially true for classical. It may not be true for other genres, like for instance, jazz. There may be some technical aspects that you have to practice, but once you start improvising, then you're becoming a little bit more in tune with, the emotional aspect and riding off of that. In classical, it's a little bit, you have to rein that in and actually sit down and drill small segments if you want to get to the next level. It's not about, oh, I'm just going to play this through, gloss it through, enjoy it. No, I have to chop this thing up and perfect this piece, then string these bits together, and then go again to the next chunk. So doing that is not fun. And the only way you're going to get to the next level is if you do that, particularly in classical. So therefore, for me, I've been forced to get out of that.
Sean, I'm sure that you're aware of this stereotype or this general feeling about creative people, musicians, artists, etc., being a little bit eccentric people. Even
yes, we tend to be, yeah.
Autistic. Is this really true, or is this just some sort of myth?
I would say it's a fair generalization. I would not say it's true for everybody. I think there are people who are able to rein it in more, and I think there's also an aspect of it, you know, as you said, it's a myth that is out there in society, and so people who are aspiring towards becoming an artist then take on these personas because they feel that that is part and parcel of the package of being an artist. I don't know. I mean, if you're like that naturally, fine, you know. But if you're trying to put it on because you feel that that is just how you ought to be, the divitude and all that, it's, to me, that's just excessive. So but there are people who, you know, that's... So.
If your high school classmates were to meet you now, what would they think?
About?
Oh, Sean is a musician, but he's still cool. He's still Sean.
No, I think most people see musicians as cool. I think some people see them as a little too cool. So part of the issue I've had over the years is that I am a musician. I'm also technically an engineer. And there are these other aspects, and a lot of people do not see. So my engineering friends would describe me as the pianist. And the musician friends would describe me as the engineer because, you know, society has taught us to basically pigeonhole people into these various constructs. And so it's hard for people to rationalize someone who doesn't fit into one mold only. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's a struggle professionally to balance that out. I think I'm at a place where I'm comfortable in my life, you know, dealing with both. I'm thankfully not needing to prove myself on either point, in either camp right now, or at least I don't feel the need to anymore. But it has been a struggle dealing with, you know.
And speaking about what you do professionally and balance, you're not a full-time musician.
No, I'm not.
What else do you do professionally?
I do a lot of teaching. I have my own teaching service. That's what I do.
And what do you do? And what do you teach?
I teach privately.
In Canada.
In
right?
Canada, yes.
In Canada.
So I do a lot of test preps, which gives me, you know, which pays the bills, and so I'm able to focus on what I love, you know, which is music, sometimes a little more and to a better extent than a lot of my so-called musician friends, because I have something else to balance it with.
And about inspiration, generally for musicians, they have some source of inspiration. It could be a person, like a famous musician, or somebody in their life, whether they're a music teacher, a particular experience, a place. What is it that inspires you? Where do you get your inspiration from?
I think for me, I work like this. I set my mind on something and I go after it. So in terms of choosing pieces, once I've decided on some sort of, you know, repertoire for a concert per se, I pretty much plan it, choose it, and then practice it. So I don't really per se draw inspiration from, you know, different people or different musicians. I respect a lot of them, and I am, you know, amazed at, you know, a lot of the different talents that exist out there. But to say draw inspiration, not of late.
I get the impression, Sean, that you're speaking about yourself as a musician now. And if I might say so myself, I get the impression that you are a mature musician. Mm. What about in your formative years? Did you have any particular person in your life that inspired you as a musician?
I don't know if inspiration is the word, or inspired is the verb. But my first music teacher, Mrs. Lois Williams, she's definitely a formidable influence upon my life. She's a woman who is dedicated to what she does. She's very professional. She's no BS with her, very firm, exacting standards. And I see a lot of those ideals in myself now. And it's weird in retrospect because, you know, because you're there as a student, you see it, but you don't realize how much that shapes you and molds you as a person. She's a no-nonsense person. She's a person who would say, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and I am going to set a plan in motion to achieve that. And these are definitely things that I picked up from her, and definitely she has influenced me not only musically, but in terms of how I approach many aspects of my life.
Tell me a little bit about the performances you've been a part of, whether as a soloist or as a part of a group, and how do you go about choosing your repertoire for these performances?
Let's look at the solo ones first. So last year I decided, I've been looking at themes that are accessible, because to me you're marketing a product, right? It's not just, oh, I'm coming to a recital. That works in the first world. That does not work in the Caribbean. So there must be some sort of hook. So my last, the recital that I've been playing of late is called Let's Dance, or Shall We Dance? And what it was a series of dances or dance music written for the piano. So a lot of classical, some ragtime, a lot of contemporary music that's influenced by the tango, by a lot of Latin genres. So it's accessible. Collaborative works, you're collaborating with people, so it all depends on what repertoire they would like. Hopefully there's some alignment with what I already know and what they would like. So for example, the last performance I did, major collaborative work, was with the National Steel Orchestra in Trinidad. With that, we were doing the Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto. They came to me actually, Mr. Murray, he's the conductor, and I know he was a colleague at UWI, where I lectured for about 3 years in Trinidad, and he told me, you know, we'd like you to come and perform. These are the two pieces, the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue and the Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto. Both of them I actually know, or knew before. So for me, the opportunity to play the Tchaikovsky won out. So I chose that piece over. So a lot of the collaborative work, it depends on what the other person wants to do. If it's in your repertoire, or would you have time in order to learn it and perfect it. That's pretty much.
Okay, and you've played in St. Vincent also.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about one of your latest performances there?
My last performance there, well, I accompanied the Kingston Chorale in their Christmas concert last December. And before that, I did the Let's Dance at the Governor General's residence in October.
And how have your performances been received in St. Vincent?
Well received. It's been, the Vincentian community has been very supportive. I actually can push them a lot more than I can push, let's say, the audience in Trinidad with my solo recitals. And you know, it's really good to have that support, especially at home. My concerts have been well received by those who come out. And a lot of people always, you know, they've seen me grow over the years, so a lot of people are like amazed at what they see, especially when it's far different from what they remember. So it's been an interesting journey.
What are your views on music in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
The can of worms, finally. Music in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I think, one, it has a long way to go. There are a lot of talented people. There are lots of people who are, how do I put this, who would like to do something more with their talents. And I don't think there are lots of opportunities. There are some opportunities depending on what you want to do. But in terms of professionally, or at least getting professional training, that's tough. So for example, we were early at the Yamaha Center here in Taipei. That building is, how many floors in that building? At least 14, something about that. The first 3 floors are the store, occupied by the store, so different instruments. We do not have any music schools and music stores that have as many instruments in St. Vincent. So that's the first thing. So access to raw materials. Next thing, the next couple floors, about 4 or 5 floors, are practice rooms where you have teachers coming in for different instruments and teaching kids all day. And the thing is, we do not have a lot of teachers. We do not have a lot of instruments. We do not have this culture of people learning, well, it depends, learning music. There's some of that there, yes, a lot of people do piano, but there are other instruments. And so to take it to the next level, if you say to have an orchestra, we need strings. Strings is something that's lacking in Simmons. It's a lot better now than it was when we were in grammar school. But there's still a long way to go with that. And it's really sad when you go to St. Lucia, there's an established school of music. They have an orchestra. They have a string quartet. I mean, yes, there's always brass because you have the military, you have the police force and the cadets. So the brass is covered, the woodwinds are covered. For the most part, there are 1 or 2 instruments that are missing. Professional percussion is another thing that's lacking. And a lot of people then would say, oh, you know, we have the steel band and that is our thing. And yes, but there are other aspects. Music is, you know, is broader than that. It's not just that. So, you know, we have to develop it further. We have to push the boundaries. We have to provide opportunities for talented musicians. We have to get out of this mindset that money cannot be made from music. I mean, Rihanna's making quite a bit of money last time I checked.
But that's from singing.
It's still music, right? It falls under the same umbrella.
It does, but not the same as playing an instrument.
Right, but there are pianists who are making a lot of money.
Like yourself?
No, not me. But there are pianists who are making a lot. You have Lang Lang, you have Kissin, you have a lot of talented people out there. Yes, there are few positions there, but the thing is, once you have, I believe that if you're doing what you're passionate about, you will become successful. Yes, if you're talented, you're passionate about it, and you're able to see it as a business problem that you're solving, you will find a solution. Whether it is aligning yourself with different people whose skills are complementary to yours so that you're able to get somewhere, however you want to slice or dice it. If you're following your passion, you will be a lot more successful. And I think a lot of people, especially in St. Vincent, tend to underplay that because, on the surface it doesn't seem as lucrative as doing law or doing medicine.
You spoke to some of the challenges in becoming a musician. The infrastructure, the availability of instruments, places to play. But I get the sense that you're trying to avoid commenting on what is actually produced.
A lot of it was because I have not been following as closely of late. You know, I no longer live in St. Vincent. I hear some stuff occasionally, but I do not follow it. I must say I don't follow as actively as some people might believe. I've heard actually like quite a bit of what I did here. It seems as though...
What genre was that?
Well, there are very few genres that come out to St. Vincent. A lot of it is mostly soca, rapper soca. A lot of it is evolving, just as, you know, Trinidad's...
Evolving in what direction?
There's a lot of the popso, is popso they call it, this sort of pop soca. Like, for example, what's his name? Kiss, that sort of... You're borrowing from a lot of the other genres, which is, to me, is fine. A lot of people have issues with that because they always see, you know, genres as very, you know, separate institutions that we need to have, you know, conserve and keep to the traditions and all of that. There's a place for traditional and there's a place for avant-garde and this sort of experimental, and it's experimenting that actually leads to the evolution and you know, perpetuation of the genres. So that's inevitable. There's a lot of that happening now, which is good. I think also what has happened with the proliferation of recording technology, and that recording technology is becoming a lot cheaper, you're getting a lot more stuff out there. You're also getting a lot more crap, but that's, you know, like with any technology, that typically happens. But I think there's been a lot of good, there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work in terms of recording and getting the music documented. For me, I think it's more elevating that to the next level, because, you know, it's one thing to say you're recording or you go to a studio and record something. If the person isn't formally trained, or at least have a fairly solid background in music, you're going to get some things that musically are not quite kosher. So, you know, it's a balance. The other aspect with you know, music instruments, and I think the one thing that I think needs a lot of work, though, besides the, you know, is this whole business of stage performance. And this is regardless of genre. A lot of people don't realize that when you get up on stage, you're communicating with an audience. That communication can take many different forms, but it still is communicating with an audience. You can do the best tracks in the studio, but when you get on stage, it's a performance. And that, the aspect of performance art, needs some work, especially from a lot of the soca artists. I mean, you look at Soca Monarch, you look at certain songs that you think would do well going in, and you look at what happens. A lot of it has to do with how you perform on stage and your ability to command the stage. Yes, a lot of it is, you know, how much the crowd loves you, and, you know, there's that aspect. But in terms of performing on stage, that's something that we need a lot of work on, regardless of genre.
So Sean, you've made these very interesting observations about music in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But there's some people who look at you and say, here we have this person who's trained, a product of this environment, and he has these skills, but he's not coming home. He lives overseas. How do you respond to such an argument?
It's an interesting one in the sense that it's actually proven my point, which is there are limited opportunities for someone like myself to make a contribution at home. There's only so much funding, there's only so much, well, there's space and there's room to do a lot, but there are few positions and there isn't as much money allocated to actually, you know, to these sorts of endeavors. That's one thing. In terms of the type of music I do, I need to be in an environment where I could develop as well along that lines. Now, classical music is not a big thing. In St. Vincent, you're looking at attending concerts, being able to interact with other classical musicians. Now, it's one thing if you're working in isolation, but St. Vincent at this point in time does not offer that. And so it's a combination of wanting to be, I mean, it's a very tough decision, because you want to, yes, make a contribution to the country that has produced you. But at the same time, you have professional aspirations of your own, and how far do you want to get in your life? And it's a very tough thing. And at this point in time, unfortunately, a lot of my professional aspirations are not in line with what is available in St. Vincent. And also, I think that at this stage in my career, I'm not able to make the contributions that I want to make, or at least at this point in time, the contributions that I can make are best made elsewhere. Because I do contribute. It's just that it's not as visible. You know, a lot of it is mentoring younger musicians who have professional aspirations, giving them guidance. A lot of that is not public. A lot of that people would not see. You know, people only see the very visible things, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in the background that a lot of people are not. So I do make my contributions.
Okay, my final question, Sean. You're from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like me. Mm-hmm. You live in Canada. Mm-hmm. What brings you to Taiwan?
Okay, one of my dearest friends from undergrad is Taiwanese and has been strongly suggesting that I come visit for some time now, and finally I'm making it, so that's why I'm here.
How long have you been here?
I've been here now, let's see, since Sunday, so about 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days. And how are you enjoying your trip so far?
It's good. Getting out there, seeing the sights. I was able to see everything from 101. I mean, being the second tallest building in the world. But yeah, I've been cutting around. I've been eating a lot of food, so that has been good.
And
a little bit more than I wanted to, but yeah.
And culturally, have you been able to appreciate the cultural elements of Taiwan?
Yeah, a little bit. The language barrier is, hinders that a bit, but getting around that and just smiling and, pointing and making sure I count the money correctly. But yeah, it's been great. It's been great. It's been a long time coming, this trip, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip, your time here in Taiwan, and thank you so very much for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks.
Cheers.